Hello and welcome back to my RC channel. Today I'm going to do a review of the Xiaomi Yi action camera. Now there are plenty of videos out there already of this camera, but I wanted to do a review from an FPV recording perspective. And some of you who follow my channel will know that I mainly deal with micro quadcopters, and yes, I have expanded to full-size quadcopters. I've got two of them here. I'm not going to go through all the specs of those because I'm still getting used to the setup and I still don't have it perfected. So when I have it perfected, I'll do a video on what works and what doesn't work. But for now, I've received this camera and there's a lot of buzz about it. I'm impressed with it for sure, but one thing that I noticed when going through all of its features is there is definitely some downsides to it. And I just wanted to go through those, as well as the good sides. First of all, the selling point for me was the fact that it does 60 frames a second in 1080p, and it's a really cheap camera. I'm comparing it here to the Mobius, which does 60 frames a second in 720p, but not in 1080p. I think for the Mobius, that would be the next big step. However, as you can see, you can't really put it in the same category as a Mobius, because a Mobius is a really small form factor. It will fit on mini quads. I'm sure this would fit on mini quads as well, but this is more of a GoPro sort of shape and GoPro contender as well. And that brings me on to the next amazing selling point of this, and this is the wide dynamic range, of which you can compare it to the GoPro. It is really good. So a Mobius, if you were to point it at the sun and point it away, the screen would go really dark. It would take some time to adjust. Now this camera doesn't do that. It is on par with the GoPro camera. So one thing that I think goes against this camera slightly is its bit rate. So the Mobius records at 19 megabit for 30 frames per second. This one records at 25 megabit for 60 frames a second. So it's not that much more than the Mobius, considering we are doubling the frame rate. So definitely for the 30 frames per second recording, you're not going to get a higher bit rate than the Mobius. In fact, I think that does show as well, actually. I think the Mobius definitely seems sharper when it comes to the 1080p image, but I think this one wins over the fact that it's got the wide dynamic range spot on and the fact that it does 60 frames per second. So one thing that's a little bit buggy is the app that you use to change the settings. So this has got Wi-Fi on it, and what you do is you download an app, not off the Play Store. That's another thing that's not been mentioned. You download the app off the website of the manufacturer, and really annoyingly, what happened with me, the way I found that out is I looked at Techmoan's review, and he put a link of the software, the APK, because it only works on Android at the moment, I believe. And I downloaded that and I installed it on my phone, and I got an error, and it said something like not installed. And I thought, oh God, is my device not supported? But it turns out that he was just posting a link to an older software version. What I had to do is, if you type in the manufacturer and the camera name, it brings up a thread on their website. You have to sign up to an account, and you also have to post a reply in order to get the link to the latest software, which is really annoying. Then you have to load that on your phone and install it. It'd be so much easier if they got it on the Play Store. Please, just do that, because it would be so much easier. So I've taken the camera off the gimbal here, and my gimbal was designed for a GoPro. Now, this doesn't fit the GoPro cases, and also my gimbal came with this to strap in a GoPro underneath here, and this doesn't fit around it, so definitely not GoPro compatible with any of the stuff there. However, that didn't matter because it does very handily have a tripod screw thread underneath there. So in my gimbal, I could just screw it in, and that was a nice solution. One other thing that wasn't really covered is the fact that this thing is pretty slow. So when you turn it on, you have to wait until this light goes red here. See, it's still not gone red. And just while we're waiting for that, it comes standard in picture mode. You press this button and it takes a picture. You have to go into the app on the phone to change that so that when it boots up in video mode. We'll go through that in a bit. So these LED indicators aren't very bright either. So if you want to press record, you just tap it once and then it starts flashing to show that it records. Now in the daylight, you can't see that very well. You have to sort of cover it. I mean, I've got the flash here on the camera and it's struggling to pick it up there. That's a similar sort of scenario what you get in the daytime. As other people mentioned, you get a cover here for the SD slot and the HDMI and the USB. I have removed that because I think it's just going to get lost. So it's also really slow at getting the Wi-Fi enabled. So everything that you do on this camera is controlled through the app on Android. So if you don't have an Android phone, you're in trouble. So to get the Wi-Fi working, you press this button here and the light goes blue, but it's not ready yet. You have to wait quite a while until this blue light here starts to flash and then it's ready to connect with the phone. And even then, I've been struggling getting it to connect properly with the phone. Sometimes it does it, sometimes it doesn't, sometimes it takes ages. That wasn't shown in the other reviews that I saw. So there we go, it's flashing, so I'm going to go to the app and connect to it and show you the settings that we can change. So the app only works in portrait view. If you try to go to landscape or you're using a rotation app, then it's going to crash. So we've got a lot of Chinese writing here, and this is the camera here. You can get it in this lime green color, or you can get it in the white color. I would say that the white color does get dirty very fast, so be aware of that. If you have some heavy landings, which I have had, then it gets dirty. Whereas I'm sure the lime green one doesn't show the dirt as much, but it is quite vulgar, so that's up to you. So we've got this button down here that lets us connect to the camera. You can see here, searching for camera. And sometimes this takes ages and sometimes it doesn't work. Look at that, camera not found. I'm going to retry. There we go, it's connected this time. So before anyone is thinking, can I use this for my FPV view, there is really quite a lot of delay. All you can really use this for is setting up your shot, really, if you're using it for a non-FPV purpose, really. You've got the option here to start recording video. We're not going to go into that. I'll just show you the settings first of all. So here you can change the quality. I've got it set to high. Timestamp I always have switched off. Resolution I've got it on the 60p because that's what I want it for. You've got the TV standard. Now I've got that set to NTSC because if you set it to PAL, you only get 50 frames per second. So that was for video. This is for the photo mode. You've got 16 megapixels there, which is really good. It's got a Sony sensor in this, so the money has been spent in the right place. Here we've got preview, auto low light. I've got that turned on. Loop recording turned off. Most of those things turned off. AV output. Now this is something that you'll be interested in from FPV. It does have a video out. An and it uses the same lead as the SJ4000 cam. I've got one of those coming on the way. However, looking at other videos, there does seem to be an amount of latency similar to the latency on the Mobius. However, with the fact that this camera has got an insanely good wide dynamic range, I think it would be a good contender to use for FPV, just like people use GoPros for FPV. However, people still tend to use a separate camera in case the GoPro, or in this case, this camera crashes. That's a good idea to do, really, because this camera is trying to do a lot of stuff at the same time. So I think I'm still going to be using a separate camera for that. Auto power off, 5 minutes. LEDs you can turn off. I wouldn't recommend that because it's confusing enough as it is with the current LED setup. You've got the firmware version, serial number, things like that. Restore factory settings, which I haven't needed to do yet. Okay, so that's the settings. So you've got these buttons here. If you press this button here that kind of looks like planet Mars, that takes you into your video that you've recorded. Also, this is quite nice here. Camera battery, 88%. Ignore phone battery. My phone battery is running quite low. But that's quite good that it tells you the battery. Again, it's not really, you can't really use that if you're doing FPV. Just because you're only going to get this telemetry for a short distance. But yeah, if you press this one here, this button to show the current videos that are on there. Now, something that I did notice is because I'm recording in 60 frames per second, when I try and play something, the file cannot be viewed online. I think it's just because I'm recording at 60 FPS, but that's something to bear in mind, that you can't view back your videos if you are recording in 60 FPS. So that's pretty much it, really, for the app. You know, you can change it to photo mode. You see there it goes, you get a slightly wider view there. I guess it's using more of the sensor. It's like a 4:3 format there. So that's it, really, for the app. So I have done some flying with this. You're going to have to excuse my poor gimbal setup. That is something that I'm working on. That's exactly why I haven't included this whole setup. You know, I'm not going to go through which quadcopter I'm using. That's something that I'm going to do for the future when I've got everything dialed in. But that's what I'm currently doing at the moment, is I'm testing all the different scenarios. Because one thing that a lot of people don't mention when getting into the bigger quadcopters and the more custom builds is the amount of trial and error that you have to do is crazy. You don't realize, you can't really get that from watching a video online, but getting the motors correct, the correct size motors, the correct size battery, the amount of weight that you want to pull, just all that information, the size propellers. There is just so much, and I haven't got it quite right yet. But I think I can show this camera and show what it's able to do. The gimbal, like I say, the footage is a little bit wobbly. There's no jello, but it's an extremely windy day as well, so bear that in mind. But let's check out the camera footage. So we got a really windy day here, and as I said, a badly set up gimbal. That's for a different day. This is to show the camera in its 60 frames per second mode. You'll have to ignore the slight buffeting. But I took this video at this time because I usually really struggle to get a video at this time. You can see the gimbal not acting correctly there. Look at that. Straight into the sun, and can still see artifacts on the houses. Just absolutely, this camera is mega when it comes to the dynamic range. I don't have another camera in my roster apart from FPV cameras that are able to do that, so this camera is worth the money just for that. I keep the quad quite close in because I'm struggling to get my setup perfect yet. So yeah, I'm not doing FPV here, by the way. I'm doing line of sight, but Yeah, I'm not too sure on the picture. I know that on YouTube it's gonna come across more blocky, even blockier than it will be from the raw video. But I think it's good enough. It's pretty sharp and clear, like I mentioned before, though. The bit rate is not as high as the Mobius. Maybe that's something that they've had to do in order to be able to get that 60 frames per second. They've had to sort of the bit rate has had to suffer. But saying that you know, the fact that it's only 25 megabit, the files are very similar size to the Mobius, so that's a positive. YouTube YouTube re-encodes the Mobius anyway and makes it blocky, so yeah, one thing that I like about this though is there is not really much of a fishbowl effect, you know, on the fisheye. Definitely less of that on this camera than the Mobius, and of course this camera as well has a lens correction option. I don't have this turned on because I'm not really a fan of that. I think if I wanted to mess about with that, I would do it in editing, because you know it's just basically an editing feature. I don't think this needs it. The horizon is pretty level compared to a Mobius, so I'm pretty happy about that. One thing that I really like about this is the colors. The colors are really nice. They are sort of more of a warmer color, more similar to the GoPro. Here I'm just doing some panning because I cannot get this gimbal set up correctly. This is the cheap Banggood gimbal. It costs £30, and I think I've got it sussed now. I think there's a problem with the calibration of the gyro and the accelerometer. When I was doing your movements, the camera was sort of following the quad and sitting at an angle. That's not relevant to this video. And also, I tried quite a bit of power as well while flying, and getting juddery movements. That's nothing to do with the camera either. The camera is really good. Generally, I think it's a really great camera. It's performing like a GoPro on their dynamic range. Look at that, straight into the sun, and can still see the houses. You can't do that with your eyes, so I really can't complain about it there. The only, like I say, the downsides to it is the app. It's quite buggy. It's not on the Play Store. You have to download it and then move it onto your phone. It's kind of annoying to have to do that. And also, the older version didn't work. And the other problem is the fact that it's in photo mode as standard, and you have to change that. And you need to do that with the Android app. If you don't have that, then, you know, you can't do it. I only bought this because I knew that I got Android. I was panicking when the app wouldn't work, or when there was nothing on the Play Store. I should have checked that first. The bitrate, I hope something comes out in the future that lets us to up the bitrate. I'm sure maybe the frame rate will suffer, but even if you can just like have a 30 frames per second option with a 19 megabit frame rate, then it's at least matching the Mobius. But in general, really happy with this camera. I would definitely say to everyone in the hobby, go out and get one. It is a step up from the Mobius, I believe, just because of this dynamic range there. Look completely into the sun and can still see the end of the street there. And the fact that it does 60 frames per second. So there you go, that's my spin on this particular camera. Thanks a lot for watching, please subscribe. Cheers.